Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We are back here today with, I'm not even sure what episode number this is of our little podcast. I am, as always, Dr. Jen Cavis.
And I am Angela McCuiston of Music Strong.
And today we're going to start out with a message, a really interesting message, actually, that Angela got. That I think I'll just let you introduce it from there.
Yeah, sure. So I've been reaching out to as many instrumentalists as are willing to talk to me about what their issues are with playing, with injury, with just how they're feeling, right? And their experiences. And a cellist reached out and told me some really interesting stuff. And I'm going to skip to the end of her message. I'm not going to say who she is, but something she said, she said, I get discouraged. I must admit that I get discouraged as many of the stories are of people who already enjoyed a level of physical activity and just needed to learn how to channel it into staying conditioned for their instrument. I struggle just to want to move my body at all and would love to hear others who are like that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that what she was referencing was the community of musicians who talk about the physical aspect of playing.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying that she's right. Most of us talk about continuing instead of just coming from a place where we don't have any athletic background. So the question is, do we need an athletic background? And also, if it's not athletic, what if you just want to move and you don't know where to start?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot going on with that. A lot more than it certainly seems like on the surface. And we decided not to unpack this, but when you say an athletic background, that can mean so many different things, right? To so many different people, and a lot of it comes down to definitions and personal experiences, and why do you think as a person that you are not athletic? Because there's a lot of us like that, who grew up thinking that we weren't, and then you start getting into moving more, and you go, oh no, I remember I did this as a kid. I was good at this as a kid. Why did I think I was terrible? Oh, because of XYZ experience that took that out of context. So that's one level of it. The whole, like, I know we've talked about this too recently with struggling to just want to move at all. You know,
yes.
really, really tough in general. And part of that double-edged sword, I know for me too, and I'm sure you've had this experience, but correct me if I'm wrong, is um, you get tired at the end of the day, so you don't want to move. And you have two choices. Either you don't move and then you're still tired, or you move even though you're tired and all of a sudden you have energy.
Yeah, I cannot work out in the afternoon/evening. It's just too, for that reason.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That reason. I'm a morning person when it comes to that. I want to get my workout in, whatever my movement is, first thing in the morning. When I wake up, first thing, because I know if I immediately get on email and start doing those things, it won't happen. I'm
Yep.
like, well, it has to wait. It can wait another hour or two if it waited all night and yesterday and probably the day before that. It can wait another 2 hours.
Right, right. And I'm actually in the opposite, where it takes me so long to wake up physically every single day that it's like, okay, I can do the low key mental stuff first. And then by the time I'm done with my work day, I'm like, and don't get me wrong, by the end of the work day, I'm like, I'm tired, I'm done, I just want to go sit down, veg out. The rule is don't sit down.
Yes, when you sit
Oh,
down, you're done.
don't sit down. Like, come home
Yeah.
from work, get changed, go back out, go for a walk. Just one lap around the block. Because usually if you do a lap, you'll do two. And then you'll want to move more.
Yes. It just
um,
starts with that little bit.
yeah, yeah. And it's just don't sit down. Just start moving. And the more you move, the more you'll want to move, the more you'll have the energy to do it. So that's a starting point that I found to be pretty critical for, especially afternoon people. I know morning people, it's hard to want to put off the work, um, but then you get your workout done and you're not as stressed about it the rest of the day.
Yeah. And I did a bike ride this morning. It was hard for me to get up and do it. And honestly, I feel better if I get up at 5:30 and just go ride.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel way better. But the problem is I've gotten into a habit of going to bed later and
Yeah.
I can't get up early
Right.
and now I don't have to. It's just this
Right.
vicious cycle. It's like, you know what? I know I do better. And we're getting off on a tangent, but I know I
Yeah.
do better when I go to bed earlier. And now I know because of all that's going on, I need 8 to 9 hours. And if I don't get it,
Yes.
I'm having
Forget.
a crappy day. And it's
Right.
not negotiable anymore.
Right.
That's another topic.
And
So
for sure that is like a necessity that we've been downplaying, like just to hammer that home. You want to talk about
seriously,
learning and creativity, that's a necessity. It's not.
and feeling burned out, you get so much more burned out so quickly when you don't have enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Tangent, but
Yes.
so I right now it's getting hotter
Mm-hmm.
sooner. The sun rises earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So if the sun rises at 6:30 and I get up at 5:30, get my kit together, bike in the car, go drive somewhere, start riding before dawn, it's still just like, it's cool. And if I'm done by 7:30, whatever, I've gotten in more miles than I would have. It's been cool. There's no people on the road.
Yeah.
It's really just the best time. Everything's still quiet.
Yeah.
I would say I can do that with like lifting, but I don't have a gym close to me versus other than my home gym. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another struggle.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about am am I an athlete? I, sure, actually, yeah. But I feel weird calling myself an athlete because I've never been good at competitive sports. Am I a
Yes.
competitive cyclist against myself? Against
Yeah.
anybody else? I don't care.
Yeah.
You do
Yeah.
you, boo. I don't care.
And that's that definition thing that we were talking about. And it's also the oh, I had a thought that just hopped out of my head. Come back, come back, come back.
Which thing?
um, we're talking about no, no, no. So yeah, there's the definition thing with that where like we like to say you have to do a sport to be athletic, whatever.
Right.
And then there's the perceived image, right, of what's going on with people who look athletic and are doing this.
Yes.
And why that comes across that way. Whereas, I would think that somebody who is just starting out and really afraid of it would look at somebody like, us doing any of our workouts and go, oh, well, you're just continuing on, whatever. And like, no, that's started from scratch. And then you look at people like us compared to, elite tier professional athletes in sports, and
Yeah.
very different, very, very different looking. And they to us seem like, oh, those are the athletes and we're this.
Can I just say that it doesn't matter what level you are at, you can still be intimidated, and you can still feel like you don't know what you're doing. You can
Yeah,
still feel like a beginner.
right.
I don't care how long you've been. I've been lifting for, I don't know, 20, 25 years. I've been a coach for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These, and I feel stupid for like harping on these injuries for the last several episodes, but they're still here. They're not,
Yeah.
and I've just made some progress with this thoracic outlet stuff and some progress with the hamstring tendinosis, but they take time. And I am so impatient to do things. And so I go in the gym and like I tried to do some things today and they felt good in the moment. And now my fingers numb again. Can't have this. Okay.
Yeah.
Ego. I was like, oh, this is good. Oh, it's not
No.
good.
No.
Not good. So it's, and I know my fitness has gone, I'm not afraid to say my fitness has decreased from where I was last year. But I also have to be really careful because I don't want to go backwards while I'm rehabbing this stuff. So when I go back to working out the way I want to, it's going to be an ego punch a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to be a beginner again and start building that base of strength that I had. And it's okay to go back to being a beginner.
Yes. And
I know
I
that's a tangent.
that, well, it's very much relevant. And again, there's a direct parallel here to what we do musically too as performers, that I think we need to kind of highlight. Personally, I'd like to highlight because I wish somebody had said that to me when I was, in this position. It's tougher and this is going to sound a little bit like if you're a younger musician, a younger performer, this is just how it is. There's nothing wrong with this. The younger you are, the less experience you have as a performer, the more you see it as a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a certain level of, there's that compensation versus capacity type thing, which I think we'll get into. That's a Louis Simmons quote. I've got an article on it. You can get to a certain point doing things a certain way, but if there's something fundamentally inhibiting in how you're doing it, you can only go so far. There's a ceiling. Versus if you're willing to figure out what that problem is and move it over here, there's no ceiling anymore. Or there is a ceiling, but it's a much higher one. Well, you can't go from here's my ceiling on this to here's the next thing, straight line. So like my first 2 years, my pre-doctorate year and my doctorate year for clarinet, I was revamping my embouchure from the ground up and my hair, which means that I was playing way worse than most of our master students as a doctoral student. Ego crushing.
Yeah.
Totally. And, I picked up the clarinet in grade school, but when you compare it to something like there's something fundamentally wrong with how I'm walking that's causing an ankle injury, a chronic ankle injury. Okay, so we're talking about going further back than that. If it took me 2 years to completely drop down my embouchure and revamp it just to get back to where I was, how long is it going to take to undo something that is such a fundamental part of daily life? And not even undo, but learn to do better at such a foundational level, right? So it hurts every time emotionally, but it's the only way to grow,
I see these trainers that I'm working. This is our first or second week back in the gym, and people, and we're all excited to get back, like real weights, like heavy weights and barbells and sleds and like things, more than just what I have at home, more than bands. It's exciting. And I see like some of these guys have been able to keep up these monster workouts. They took equipment home, they could do things, and they're on this other level. And I'm like, I miss that. I used to could.
Yeah.
Bad English. I used to could.
Used to could. You still could.
You might could. That's a Southern one right there. Now you might could. I hear that every day. But I'll be honest. It's going to be intimidating for me to work out in front of them when I see them work out in front of me, and it's going to be intimidating for me to go back there. And I'm going to want to pick a time where nobody's there.
Yes.
And I can not feel judged, because I know that we look at each other. We don't judge each other really, but we all do pay attention, and I don't want them paying attention to me. Right. Some of them know what I'm dealing with, but most don't, and I don't want to necessarily explain it.
Yeah, well, and it's like how most people practice better at their instrument when they're practicing at home alone.
It's so much better at home.
It's better when you're home alone. Next best thing is in a practice room with the door shut. You have a public practice space. Oh, those are never good practice sessions for me. That's performance prep for me at that point. Even if I'm practicing something like, okay, I'm going to practice performing this at this, at this level, this lower level.
Yeah.
But the second I know, and they're not, you can be friends who don't care. Like, okay, you're supposed to sound bad. You're learning this. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
And I know my fellow trainers don't care. And the minute I tell them what I'm doing, they're like, oh, that sucks. And I know if I asked any of them to write me a workout or to show me something, they'd be like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's all super camaraderie, but there's still that part of you that goes, I want to be a beginner. I want to start over. I'm embarrassed. Mm-hmm. I know where I was and know where I can be, and I'm not. So, and it's embarrassing when you see people doing all these heavy things and advanced moves, and you're just like, but okay, I gotta do like the basics for a while.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's really okay.
Yes.
You have to start, and you have, just like playing an instrument, you had to learn your scales, you had to learn them properly, you had to learn the right finger position, you had to learn all those things, and if you gloss over them, it's going to impede what you do for the rest of what you're doing, which is part of why I'm injured in the first place. I've never been able to deadlift properly because of what's going on with this hip issue, which is what started the whole mess. So when this is all said and done, I'm finally going to be able to lift with both glutes and, you know, all the other things. I'm going to like finally feel like I'm doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just going to take way longer than I want to.
Right. So, but that's life, right? We have this pressure because everything, especially technology, but everything else is moving so fast right now.
So fast.
The human body does not do that.
Mm-hmm.
The human body is very good. I know we talked about this with DOMS and a couple other episodes, but it's very good at compensating for what it's put through and sticking to what it knows is safe, even if that is also harmful. You know? So like, hey, my squat is really dysfunctional and it hurts sometimes. So we're going to keep doing what I need to do in order to be strong enough to do literally every other daily movement, and I'm just not going to squat.
Right.
That's what my body wants to do, and I'm like, no, I don't want that for myself. So body, I need to make you feel safe to squat. So coming back around, you know, if this is that same approach to reapproaching it for people who've been in it for a little bit, yeah, it's going to feel really intimidating the first time you come to it, and especially if you know nothing.
I have had some amazing clients who've come to me and they know jack diddly squat about the gym. They walk in and feel super intimidated.
Yes.
I've only had one client see me one time and then quit. But that's because she showed up at 5:30 when there were a million people there and it was not her safe space. And she was like super, and then, you know, and she'd never been in a gym before either. It was the recipe for disaster, but that was her only time. And so it, you know, like if she could have come at 1 o'clock on a Thursday, it would have been way better. But she could only come at 5:30 on a Monday or whatever it was. But other than that, I have had some clients who have never done anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they just trust me and they trust the process.
Yeah.
And then they leave and like after a while you can see kind of like the confidence and the swagger when they walk in and they feel more comfortable and they recognize people and the people recognize them, and then they lift heavier things and other people cheer for them when they do their little happy dance. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, you just because you start with nothing doesn't mean you always stay there.
Right.
Not that was our point, but you're gonna have to start with nothing.
Yeah.
But you'll get somewhere.
Yeah, and it doesn't take as long as you think if you've got the right support system, and it doesn't have to be as painful and grueling as you think if you've got the right support system. No. It should feel like something that you can build a sense of safety around. And there's a whole mental emotional thing that I want to get into on a separate episode because I really want to dive on that. That's a big thing for me. But in terms of like the physical part, I mean, you were talking about this too. If you're intimidated by the gym, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where to go, and you're just scared to even show up. First place people go to is YouTube. There's so much free stuff. You know? Mm-hmm. And there's good stuff out there too. Like, not to talk bad about anybody on YouTube. But and I think we talked about this too with the Right Fit coaching episode, where it was like, you know, you're drawn to what you're being sold, and what you're sold is what you think looks good, and it's not always the case.
Correct.
And there's what you think looks good will most likely change if you get into this, really. I haven't really known anybody who didn't have that sort of experience, right? And the further you get into it, the more you're willing to just work on yourself and be happy, the more what looks good will change too. So I know we want to get into what do you do then if you're just getting started, but maybe that's actually a better segue into the Brett Contreras thing that you told me about.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of you guys who are listening or watching who know who Brett Contreras is. He's the glute guy. Yeah. If you find him on the IG, he's got like 1 million followers, literally 1 million followers. He's been in the game though for decades, you know. Yeah. He just wrote, I got it on my table. I haven't this whole time I should have been reading it, but I've been busy. But it's on my to-do list to read his book. He's got a book out about this thick called The Glute Lab or The Glute Bible or something. Anyway, it's the definitive work. This man has devoted his life to your butt and his butt and everybody else's butt. And because it's just like, it is so funny. But I mean, who else can create a whole career out of that part of the anatomy? This man did, because it wasn't being done and it wasn't being addressed. And it's a huge part of the anatomy that when it doesn't work, the rest of the body doesn't work well either. Musicians included, you know? So he posted something the other day that really, like yesterday, he posted this yesterday. And going with what this cellist told me the other day, reading the two of those back to back, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a whole section of the population. And are you okay if I read this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So in case, you know, it might get buried in IG at some point. So I'm going to show you, this is his post. This is Mr. Contreras in his shorts, you know, just, you know, he's just standing there. He's not, besides the flex, he's not really doing a whole lot. You saw him here's the end of his video, actually. So he stands there, he looks around, he just, look at him from the side. He's not ripped. He's, a lot of people would say he's jacked, but he's also kind of normal, right? He's not like influencer looking.
It depends on what you're used to seeing, but if we're going to go by like bodybuilding standards, he's not that big compared to a bodybuilder.
Correct. Right.
Yes.
Right. And he's not a physique model or anything.
Right.
But this man is killer strong and knows his stuff.
Yes.
So here's his post, and tell me if this resonates with y'all. So he says he's sick. He can't put down the chopstick. I'm reading this verbatim. I encourage all of you to train for strength and not just physique purposes. I see so much body dysmorphia out there, especially in the fitness industry, and it's really sad. He says, this is my current body, 6'4" and 252 pounds at 43 years old. I had a meal about an hour prior to this video, and I didn't pump up and I didn't suck it in. Many of you will say I look great. My fitness colleagues will probably feel otherwise. The point is, I don't care what others think. Tell me I have a dad bod. Tell me I carry way too much body fat for a fitness guy. Ooh. Make fun of my power belly and love handles. Tell me I'm hairy. Or point out that I should have bigger glutes considering I'm the glute guy. You cannot faze me. I'm a big gorilla who just stiff-legged 405 pounds for 20 reps. Ridiculous. These mediocre glutes have hips thrusted 815 pounds. I can squat deep AF, military press 225 pounds for 2 reps, military press being this way, and bust out 12 chin-ups. My glutes are 5 times bigger than they used to be, formerly team inverted glutes. I still look decent despite eating 6,000 calories a day, and I'm always 2 months out from looking pretty darn good. You see, I judge my body by what it's able to do, not just how it looks. And I also judge my self-worth on the impact I feel I've made on the world and people around me. So my physique doesn't have to be stellar year-round for me to feel confident. That's huge. If all you train for is your physique, you'll be frequently disappointed. But if you care about your strength, it adds another element for you to take pride in. So you guys see these ESPN body issues with all the naked athletes? If you haven't, by the way, check it out. It's mind-blowing. You see all sorts of body types, but they all proudly strut their stuff because they are the creme de la creme in their sport. I wish more people in my field loved their bodies and weren't so self-conscious. I train hard AF, and my body is the manifestation of that training and my current diet and genetics. And I stand tall and proud no matter what the haters throw my way. And I think he brings up some super valid points.
Yes, extremely. Extremely. And I mean, how many times do you see that where people go, well, I'm really not healthy and I don't feel good, so I want to start working out. But if they don't see specifically usually weight loss, they'll throw themselves into it until they burn out, or they'll quit, or Both, usually both. Um, because there's that mental image we were talking about where you want what you think looks good, and unless you're really diving into what feels good, A, you're probably not going to get there. B, even if you do, you probably won't see it. The number of people who are in bodybuilding, whether it's competitive or non-competitive, really, if you're really into bodybuilding on any level, the number of people with what he's calling dysmorphia, which is where you don't recognize anything different in your body, where you think you look different than you do. Yes. It's ridiculously high. Ridiculously high. And these are people who are just like shredded, like absolutely very lean, and they're like, oh, I'm so fat. I'm like, you're under 10% body fat. You're not fat, honey. Like,
no. Also, are all your internal organs working okay?
Right. But if you can't see it, then what good does it do? So that focus on feeling good, and especially when we're talking about getting into it as musicians and as performers, like, look, what we're doing is just now being defined as micro athleticism. Yeah. But I think we talked about this previously too, where I wouldn't define it as micro athleticism. Our technique is micro athleticism. Our embouchure is micro athleticism. But I made up a phrase that I guess we decided we liked earlier.
I think you have coined this as of 20 minutes ago.
We're standing, playing our instrument, not always standing, but especially if we're standing. You're basically holding an instrument, take your pick, for upwards of an hour, sometimes more, God help you. And there's shifting, these micro adjustments, but you can't do too much or you're going to throw yourself out of whack. And so basically what you're doing is, if you're standing still, it's an isometric, but then you're also shifting. So you're constantly putting these strains on your large support muscles, your deep core, your lats, like all that stuff. And so it's like this constant hour plus long, sometimes more, of these dynamic isometrics. Mm-hmm. You need to have a base level of strength for that in those big muscles, in the stabilizer muscles, and then in your specializing muscles, whatever, the ones that do specialization.
Special muscles.
Yeah. You've got to have a base level of strength for that, or you're just not going to survive, or you're going to start compensating. And that's the same thing with like where you're building an embouchure because you're just starting out, or because you're rusty because you took time off and came back. Like, yeah, usually you can tell how strong you used to be when you've taken a month or two off and you're like, oh, I can't hold an embouchure for more than 15 minutes at a time now.
Yeah, I know that every time I come back from a hiatus of playing, whether it was injury induced or just I took the summer off or whatever it was, at any point in my life, whether I was young or I'm where I am now, mm-hmm. Every time I come back to playing, and it's been a while, I am reacquainted with, wow, I cannot hold this flute up as long as I used to with no problem. Mm-hmm. You have to build that strength endurance. And like I said before, it is not just strength, it's not just endurance, it's strength endurance to be able to play your instrument, whether you are playing it and it's being held by the ground, or you're holding it up. You do have to build that level. And if you've taken a hiatus off, whether you're gonna have to rebuild that. The good news is usually it doesn't take that long to come back. Right. The minute you start keeping more of a consistent routine, mm-hmm. doing small amounts of practicing over that. The same happens with fitness. Yeah. You do something consistent. I have one client who's lost 20 or 30 pounds over this whole 2-month situation. He was furloughed, but he has made it his goal to exercise every day. And he came to the gym, whether he's been working out with me, and he only sees me once a week, but every day he does something. And he's like, I hit a new, not a PR, a new, not a goal. What's the word? A new record. I think it's been 34, 36 days I've exercised in a row. And it's not like he's doing major things. Like he's got a little, Fitbit kind of thing going on. He'll get up and do 45 minutes in the morning on a spin bike. But he started out with 10 to 20. Yeah. He just made a commitment to do it every morning. Yes. And then he decided that whether it was yard work that was strenuous, he also moved in the middle of this, or he's coming to work out with me.
Yeah.
It all contributes, but he is actively doing something every single day.
Yes.
And then he started tracking his calories and eating less. And I don't think he made drastic changes to his diet. He just made the goal, I'm going to move somewhat every day. I'm going to do some kind of, and he picked something you like to do. And he started there. And that's what people can do. If you don't know what to do, start with something you like to do and do a little bit of it every day. Don't do a ton of it every single day, because then you'll burn yourself out or you'll blow yourself out.
Right.
And then you'll end up with an ankle injury or something. But, you know, you do a little bit and you build consistency, and then it becomes part of your routine, and then you build on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thanks.
100%. You gotta build. And if you don't know what you're doing at all, well, sorry, before we go from that, you gotta build. You need a base level in order to do what you want to do for music. And something that I keep wanting to hit on, because I don't think it's really sunk in for a lot of people yet. Fitness / working out, whatever you want to call it, wellness, all of that, it's not about just recovery from something that is not going well, right? It's about, if you're coming to this going, I want to be a better musician because I hurt after I stand for so long, or because like, yeah, I don't feel good as a whole. Like I feel fine when I'm playing, but as a whole, I don't feel like I'm very healthy.
Yeah.
Anything that's inhibiting you is, even if it's not an injury, you're not optimized as a performer. Like the same way that athletes, you know, you talk about, I don't know, pick a sport, you know, like
fencing,
football, basketball, fencing. They all have some sort of strength related training.
Yeah, they all do.
To make their sport better.
All of them, because you cannot just train in your sport.
Right. And you know, I the further I get into working on this stuff for myself, the more I believe music's the same way. Like, if you want to be the best performer you can possibly be, you must move with ease, which is very Alexander technique and Feldenkrais and dynamic integration mentality.
Yeah.
And strength is a component of that. I know we've talked about that before too. Philosophically, that's where I land, is that this is all one thing.
Yeah.
So just had to make that point, because that's like my soul right now. But going back to what we were talking about, it's like, okay, so say you're just starting out and you know now, okay, well, I want to do just a little bit of something that I enjoy doing, but I don't know what I'm doing, right? It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to get on a spin bike for 10, 20 minutes. That's at least pretty straightforward for the most part, you know? Just pedal. Chances are there's going to be something weird in your movements that we could talk about, but we'll leave that alone. But if you're like, okay, well, my upper body is really, really weak, but if I lift weights the way that YouTube is showing me, I don't feel good. You know? So what do I do? Because I'm a beginner and I don't know anything about strength, and the YouTubes are not helpful, or they're hurtful, you know. Even
or
if
they're just not applicable to me right now. They're just not the right ones. I can't find the right ones. That's
more the thing, is that there's a lot of good out there. It's just whether or not you are ready to do what is being shown. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's going to come back to the same way that we wouldn't want you to start picking up an instrument with a book or YouTube videos. I can't stand it. And it's not that the information is bad. It's that you have no direct feedback on, you know, like, okay, well, you form your embouchure and this is how it's supposed to look. But if you don't know what you're looking at and you don't know what you're feeling, then you could be doing something that's very wrong and not even know it.
Right.
No?
You have no clue. That's why you get a teacher.
Yes.
You know, you start with a book. People usually start with a teacher who gets them a book and guides them through it.
Yes.
But sometimes people get a book and realize, and then they start with YouTube and they do okay, but then they're like, am I doing this? I don't know. And then they reach out to somebody and then they get a teacher. It all comes back to that.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing.
So when in doubt, reach out.
One-on-one. Yes. And I know that a lot of times too, much in the same way, it's like, music is an expensive career. It's an expensive hobby. It's expensive all around.
Yeah.
Like reed prices alone.
How much is a box of reeds?
Depending on the brand, the average is about $30 for 10.
For a box?
Yes. We're talking $3 a reed for your average large scale commercial brand professional reed. It's about $3 a reed, sometimes more.
How expensive is a clarinet?
Depends. The clarinet prices vary widely.
Right.
So for a professional model, if you're getting it used and it's a composite, you can get around $4,000, but they go way up. They go over like 10 and 12 per.
Are they like granadilla wood or whatever?
Well,
certain types of wood, I'm guessing.
Yeah, various types of wood. There's various types of manufacturers. Are the keys nickel or silver or gold? What kind of mouthpiece do you have? And like the accessories are ridiculously expensive too.
I'm just wondering if the reeds cost so much, and I was thinking like flutes are so expensive, and it's nothing when someone says, "Oh, I spent 20 grand." The flute I want is like 20 grand. People are like, yeah. And then Flute World's like, all right. Like, why is that? What? Yeah. And then you're like $30 for a box of reeds. I was just wondering what like the trade-off is. Maybe because the flute is made of precious metal, the whole thing, basically.
Yeah.
We have that one-time giant expense.
Right.
Our cleaning materials cost nothing.
Yeah.
You swap it out, put it in the box, you're done. I mean, like, what do you need? Cigarette paper? I mean, really, we got nothing, but we pay for it all up front.
Right.
And you guys have the continual.
We have continual reed costs. If you're double reed players, you got the time and the equipment for that, for making the reeds. If you're string player, a good string instrument is insanely expensive.
Oh, they're absolutely insane.
Yeah. So music is expensive in general. Lessons are expensive because we have to fund our ability to make, like, you're going through a box of reeds a month minimum, depending on, that's if you're a really, really heavy performer. It takes quite a lessons to afford groceries and reeds and utilities,
I know. I was talking to the lady who's gonna do a COA on my piccolo, and I think I wanted to wait until after my annual training with the Army because I know I'll get a giant check of money. Like then I'll know I'll have the money to pay for it. And I should do it every year. I think I put it off for 2 years. It's gonna be at least $400 just for this tiny little. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. But I mean, they've got to replace some pads and tweak some things and oil and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. It's expensive.
Yeah.
This is not a career for the faint of heart or the poor. So the poor musician thing is like, bull. We spend a lot of money on a lot of things.
Yeah, we just don't have a lot by the time we're done. We don't make a lot up front, and most of what we do make goes right back into what we're doing. So this ties in because it's hard enough to justify the expenses that we have to do for travel just to get a paycheck, and then reeds for some of us, and bass instrument costs, waka waka waka. And then you want to talk to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing about, well, you need to get a one-on-one trainer or coach. And that's a big stumbling block for a lot of people. But here's the thing. And some of this is going to tie into what I want to talk about in a later episode too, with not justifications, but like there's things that we all spend money on that could easily be reallocated, and you can be happy about it. Not like I have to give this up so I can afford. There's things that you don't need as much when you feel good that help with that a lot. And the other thing is that so if you approach somebody who is literally just trying to sell you a product, they're trying to sell you their 6-pack abs, and they're trying to tell you a workout will do it and not showing you what they're doing in the kitchen. Okay, they're selling you a product. Especially if they're like, by the way, buy this supplement, it'll get you ripped.
None of them work, by the way. None of them.
No.
All BS.
Yes. Chances are, though.
No pill will get you ripped.
Chances are they're not interested in working with you, so you're probably not going to get the kind of response you want. However, when you get people who are looking to actually help people, and that's why you're in it, and that's a lot of trainers, and it's going to be up to your judgment to kind of get a feel for this. It's not like you can't find somebody who won't work with you on some level. There's a lot of varying degrees, like a single one-on-one session out of the blue with no intention to continue working with me is going to be more expensive than, I need some help. I'm in another state. Can you review this video? Can we talk a little bit? Can we set up online programming? Less expensive. Can we set up a once a week, or not even twice a month, once a week, twice a month, every other week for, I'll agree to go for this many dates, but can we discount the price? The worst thing somebody can tell you if you're asking about that, because finances are really that much of a problem, worst thing they can tell you is no. So chances are you can probably find somebody who's like, okay, we'll work on this through that, whatever, and you can get started.
However, be wary of people whose prices seem really low to you. If your gut says,
Yes.
"Oh, that's cheap,"
right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And if you keep thinking that, there's a reason.
Yes.
And in the fitness realm, you usually get what you pay for. So
yes,
that, just throw that little caveat in there, because
no, I agree.
I would much rather have a couple sessions with somebody who's really expensive. It gives me, I can think of the handful of times, like we've had when I was in school, we would have like a visiting professor. I'd go to a flute day and you could have one lesson with that guest artist. Right. And how much did they charge you? And you're like, yeah, I'll find it. I really want that lesson. And how much? I mean, I remember driving 4 hours to Atlanta to have a lesson with Paul Edmund Davies of the London Symphony Orchestra, who's like amazing. Sir Paul is incredible. And I thought, I will do, that's 8 hours in the car in one day. I learned stuff from him. Dogs next door. I learned stuff from him that I use to this day. Totally worth it. Totally worth it.
100%. And
think about that when you're looking for trainers.
Yes, and I do apologize if that was not clear in what I was.
Oh, not at all.
Like, I 100% agree. You are getting what you pay for sure.
Because you don't want a trainer who's not confident in their abilities, and if they're not confident enough to set their prices at a certain level, that shows that.
Yeah.
Because you charge what you're worth, and if you don't think you're worth much, you don't charge much.
Right, and you usually, if you don't think you're worth much, and you're not charging as much, you're not confident enough to give people what they actually need, or you don't know enough, one or the other.
Right. Now that's within a realm. I mean, like, obviously we know that LA is more expensive than Nashville, is more expensive than Boise, Idaho. I mean,
yeah. Well, and I'm not talking about the difference between like, a one-off session is $70, but if you come in for 7 sessions, I'm going to charge you 10 each. Like, no.
If somebody says they're going to charge you $20 an hour, run away. 25 hours, run away.
Yeah.
Maybe not run away, but
Question it.
Big grain of salt. They might know a lot, but they might just be new.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
Just think about it. So the reason you're hearing barking is my kitten is here staring at the dog next door. That's why I'm outside, is to keep an eye on the fluff ball.
Yeah.
His name is Sir Winston. Though frequently he's been unknighted for being naughty, so.
Yeah, we've both got critter things going on here. Mine has decided that he should be involved in the podcast too.
They like to play with each other through the fence. It's pretty cute. So that's all I had, actually.
Yeah,
I think have we covered the gamut?
I think we covered everything that we had set out to talk about.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, look to feel good, look to play your best, be gentle with yourself, and look for, if you don't know where to start, look for somebody who's willing to get you started, get you started with where you are, not too much too soon, but like, hey, I see that you want to get from point A to point B. and you can't just leapfrog, like we're going to get you there. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I got for today without diving into the social, mental, and emotional stuff that I want to get into later. So,
Not today. Not today. Too
all right.
much.
All right. Well, let's do some plugs and then we'll call it a day. You want to go first?
Sure. So you can find me anywhere that says Music Strong. So you can find me at musicstrong.com, on Facebook at Music Strong Fitness. I'm sorry, that's Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Music Strong Fitness. You can find me on Facebook at Music Strong. And you can find me on YouTube somewhere under Music Strong Fitness Training. Somewhere. And the kitten freaked out. He just joined the watering can. Sorry.
little bit of comic relief for the end of our little podcast today.
He's all freaked out. Anyway, go ahead. Your plug.
Speaking of kittens, but as always, I am Dr. Jen Cabas. You can find me online at tunedandtonedperformance.com. That's tuned with a D and toned with a D. Instagram and Facebook at tuned and toned performance. YouTube, just type in tuned and toned performance. I come right up. And if you're having a hard time finding Angela's Music Strong YouTube page, either go to her website, there's a link there, or my YouTube, the Tuned and Strong podcast playlist is linked to her account also. So you should be able to find her through that also.
Yes.
Thanks again for tuning in, as usual. If you got questions or comments, feel free to drop them below or send us messages. We're happy to talk to you guys about anything. And otherwise, we will check y'all next time.
Bye-bye.